You are listening to the Spine Whisperers podcast. Please know that our doctors are here to only educate, not diagnose on this podcast. If you have any questions, please feel free to find us at www.mfwellness.org. Dr. Matt, Dr. Brad, and Kenzie are here. We're going to be talking about yoga and why it's so very important to the chiropractic community, but also to everyone. Kenzie, can you just give us a rundown of your education and how you got interested into yoga?
Yeah, so when I was 17 years old, I was diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis, and my doctor told me to lay off the high-intense workouts, so that really dove me into a slower-paced exercise, which turned into yoga. And I spent 3 months practicing every single day through the summer, and it completely changed my view of physical movement and exercise and allowed me to understand what triggers the pain with the arthritis and how to treat it with gentle movements. And then once I got back into high school, because I was starting my senior year of high school, I started weight training with the yoga, and that allowed me to deepen how important those two are, because you need to stress the bones and the muscles in a healthy way, and then yoga is a good way to recover and kind of bring that all together. And then after high school, I went to college, got a bachelor's degree in nutrition. Where at? SIUE, okay. Southern Illinois University of Edwardsville. And once I came home, the one thing I knew is I wanted to go get my yoga instructor's license. So out in St. Charles, there's a studio called Jane's House. They've been around for about 21 years. They're pretty established. Yeah, they have a 200-hour, so I got that and graduated last May. So I'm just hit my 1-year anniversary of being a certified yoga instructor.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you.
My mother and my aunt and a couple other people that I know absolutely loved our previous yoga instructor, but are even more excited and happy, and it's always nice to go through a change. And they're doing really well on Wednesday mornings.
Yeah, they're our Wednesday morning crew.
Yeah.
We show up around a little before 8. They've already been here for over an hour, and then they come over and also get adjusted. So it's kind of they get it all that day.
Yeah, it's really fun to see them experiment with the different things that I have to offer, and I love experimenting with the different props, straps, and blocks, and they're always like, okay, let's try it, let's see how this goes, and they always have positive reviews of, oh, that helped open this, or I felt a stretch there, so they've been a lot of fun to work with.
They're open to anything you throw at them, right? Okay, that's good. Is there a certain, and I don't know all the terminology with yoga, is there a certain style that you would say that you utilize?
So what I was educated in is Hatha yoga, which is like just a big umbrella of the styles of yoga, but it's very general. It's probably the most common here in the West. But underneath that, you can experience vinyasa, which is basically a series of flows, like all done together. I think that's a little more intense. So with my Hatha yoga, I do like mini flows. So I'll get us into like 2-3 positions and kind of bounce between those instead of setting up like a more traditional vinyasa will be like 7 different poses all put in a row.
And when you set up those mini flows, do you base it on, okay, we're going to be sitting during this time, we're going to be laying during this time? What are the 3 things that I think can help people's joints, mobility, breathing? How do you instruct or help people learn how to do deep breathing or belly breathing?
Well, I always start off class, like once I introduce myself, I ask if anybody has any requests, things that they want to work on.
Oh, you're on the spot. You're like, hey, a la carte.
That's where I'm like, some people don't have anything and they're like, whatever you want to do. But for me, I'm a problem solver. So when they do come in and they're like, my hip's a little wonky, I'm like, let's work on that. So for me, that really guides what I'm going to focus on through that practice. Because I kind of, I usually start everyone off either in a seated position or laying down. I go through a few minutes of centering.
Comfortable, right?
Start to connect with the breath, teach them okay, when we're in a relaxed position, deep breathing down into the belly, how to relax the core and expand there. And then I'll teach them how to engage the core and encourage the breath upwards during more active movements. So I always start the class out with that of, okay, let's get connected with the breath, because the breath guides the movements. So then once we're centered, I start moving us with movements on the floor. Slowly warm up the body, start with getting the hips movement, warm up the core, warm up the glutes. If I'm doing shoulders, I'll do a little extra shoulder movements, but it kind of depends. If someone wants hips, I won't focus as much on shoulders, but sometimes people are like, oh, my neck is sore, and I'm like, we're using those shoulders today.
Do it.
Yes. So I always start us off on the floor, get us moving there, and then so I'll either go to hands and knees or a seated position. If people have sensitivity with the knees, I usually just go to a seated position.
Modifications.
Yes, modifications are a big thing with yoga.
Okay. Because there are people that are as young as 17 years old that cannot do anything on their knees. Like their knees always hurt.
Yeah.
What kind of modifications would you do for warrior pose? A couple of the other ones that like have a hard time pushing your knees and getting that stance down. What would be a modification for that one?
So the easiest way to explain it is whatever you think is a difficult pose, I try to find a way to do it in the most supported way. So like warrior 1 or 2, you've got your legs split.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'll put us on our back, roll over to the side. Let's get the hips open first and start going through some twist. Once you're comfortable with that, I'd offer another cushion to place underneath the knees, and I'd move us through like a low lunge on the ground. So your hands can absorb a lot of the weight, and you can kind of start to experiment. Okay, does this feel good for the knee? If it does, can we push it a little further? If it's causing actual pain, let's readjust and go from there.
You devolve the pose or the movement, and you take everything away, and you start at the very base, and then you work your way up.
Yep, I go from most supported, and then the peak of the class would be the least supported, the most effort, and then we come back down to most supported.
That's awesome. That's a great way to look at it, because people are like, oh, I just can't use my knees. Just give me a modification for my knees. But what you're saying is, why can't you do it? Is it knee pain, or is it something other than, hey, I don't know how to do it in a way that,
I will ask people, like, how does this feel doing it from, a laying position to now on your knees versus standing up? Like, it's very inquiry based of like, what is it that you're feeling? Why are you feeling that? Is that a good feeling? Is that a bad feeling? Is it something that you can, keep pushing and to learn more about yourself and what actually feels right in your body?
Imagine right now you're hosting a yoga class.
Okay.
You're in the beginning, and you have 3 women and 3 guys that have never taken yoga before, and you start talking about deep belly breathing, and they're looking at you like you have 4 heads.
Yeah.
There are patients that don't feel comfortable with yoga and also don't know anything about deep belly breathing, even though we have attempted very vigorously to teach them.
Well, and a lot of people simply just don't know how to relax. It's just, and especially yoga, I'm asking you to be vulnerable, and it's a hard thing for some people to do. So what I would do to introduce a breathing segment is, especially with the beginner, I'd ask them to lay down on the ground, because a seated position, you got a lot more activity going on, and it's just a little too complicated. So usually I'd ask them to lay down. They can lay flat on their back. They can bend their knees.
Lay down right now?
No, I'm just trying. What I'm trying to do is just visualize it. Yeah.
So it's all about setting you up in a position that's comfortable. So some people don't like to lay flat, so I can set a bolster underneath their knees so that it's a little more comfortable.
What's a bolster?
Basically a yoga pillow. It's the easiest way to explain it.
Okay. Is it thin? Is it big?
There's different kinds. So here we have
what kind of bolsters do we have?
We have really nice thick bolsters. It's like 4 to 5 inches thick, 2 feet wide. It's beautiful.
It's a perfect rectangle, right?
It is a perfect rectangle. Yes, it is definitely one of my favorite bolsters I've ever used. I can do a lot with it.
Yeah.
So, but that's really popular. People like to put it underneath their knees. It's a little easier on the low back. So once you're in a comfortable position, I'll have you close your eyes, focus the gaze on the darkness behind the eyelids. Start to just cool the breath, come to the natural breath. Don't change it, but simply follow it. Begin to watch the journey through the breath. If you're breathing through your nose, can you feel the coolness of an inhale and the warmth of an exhale? And see if you can start to breathe all the way down into the belly. Keep expanding through the chest and the belly, and start to feel how those muscles lift and expand to allow the air to enter the lungs. And notice how the exhale relaxes those same muscles back into the body. Keep breathing like this, and take note of the quality of your breath. As you've begun to watch your breath, maybe it's deepened, maybe it's slowed. Notice how that feels for you. And see if you can draw your breath a little longer. Take a few extra seconds to draw in and slow the exhale out. Keep breathing like this. Begin to scan the body for any areas of tension. See if you can relax with an exhale. Maybe it's letting the knees and the ankles roll wide. Maybe roll the shoulders away from the ears. If the jaw feels tight, maybe open and close a few times as if you're yawning. And maybe you can soften the muscles surrounding the eyes and the forehead. If there's anywhere else you can relax, please do so. And with your next inhale, see if you can draw deep down into the belly. Maybe even place the hands on the belly and see if you can feel that expansion grow. Keep breathing like this, deep into the belly. See if you can relax all the surrounding muscles. And now you've entered deep belly breathing. Start to come back to your natural breath, letting it fill through the chest and the belly if that's comfortable. And on your next inhale, draw the low belly in and up. Slightly engage the core. See if you can encourage the inhale to lift and expand through all four sides of the rib cage. Keep breathing like this, and see if you can feel how that slight engagement in the core works to support the low spine. As you move through practice, this is an important style of breathing to help protect the back. So during times of relaxation, I might offer the deep belly breathing, and during times of movement, I might encourage this low belly bind during breathing. Go ahead and come back to your natural breath, and that is my breathing centering portion of the
That was really good. That was really good. As soon as you
entered my yoga state.
As soon as you hit that serious note, it was dead silent. Mm-hmm. There was nothing else going on. Dr. Brad and I were like, okay, this is what we're going to do. That was really good. That was nice and easy. Great cadence, great sound. What a great way to describe a form of getting to that meditation portion as well, as well as deep belly breathing.
Yeah.
So I think people are going to go wild.
Yeah.
People are like, oh my gosh, this is great.
When you tell people to meditate, they're like, I'm supposed to sit here with my empty thoughts. And it's like, no. I mean, there's so many different things to focus on. And like breath, for me, is like the first thing.
Right.
Learn how to breathe, because there's so many ways to breathe.
Right.
People just think it's just inhale, exhale. And it's like, no, you can send it in different directions.
That's right.
Yeah.
A couple of the other things that have kind of come to the practice's attention is that we have people that do have anxiety attacks.
Yeah.
And they think that there's something wrong with them. And as doctors, as physicians, our job is to let them know that you have
there's something happening.
There's something happening to your body. You're okay. You're not defective.
Yeah.
This is your body's natural response to stressors, subluxations, and life.
Yeah. Well, and some people's stress affects them internally, and some people's stress affects them externally. And I feel like that's a perfect way to explain an anxiety attack.
Right.
Is your stress has become a physical, external thing.
Right.
And that's okay. It is normal. It happens to millions of people across the world. It's just figuring out what your triggers are and how to breathe through it.
Right.
So
and that's
learning that deep belly breathing
right.
or that belly bind breathing will help so much to just change what's happening in the brain.
Yeah.
And I guess sort of along those lines, just here, and I know you've practiced outside of here, but you've come across a variety of individuals. Do you have a certain group of individuals you really enjoy working with? Or is there a certain, I know you got into it because of psoriatic arthritis. Is that a goal for you to work with others who deal with psoriatic?
The people that are like, I'm not flexible. Oh, I can't do yoga. I don't know how to move. Those are my favorites because I'm like, you don't have to be flexible. Like I had my cousin's husband actually come do yoga here, and he was really hesitant because he was like, I can't even touch my toes, and I was like, you don't need to. But I was also like, but I can get you to touch your toes.
Right.
Like I was like, it's just preparing the body for that style of movement. So that I think is the biggest thing is people that they're hesitant because they don't know what they're capable of.
Right.
And it's like, that's what my job is to show you, to teach you, to introduce you to the different movements that can allow your body to do amazing things.
Right.
Yeah, so definitely newbies or people that are just scared, but I also love working with people who have injuries or pain and like learning to understand what's a good pain and what's a bad pain. Because some people, as soon as they feel anything, they're like, I should stop moving.
Yes.
Yeah, we talk about that too on our side. Yeah.
We did a podcast about it, right?
Look, yeah, I think we've touched on a few.
Soreness. What's the difference between soreness and pain, and
things you should work through, and maybe sometimes when you should maybe back off.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, because people go both ends.
Yeah.
They're like, pain, and then they hurt it more, and you're like, oh.
Yeah, you have to know who you're dealing with, definitely.
Yes.
What kind of individual it is.
And we've talked to a bunch of patients that have been like, okay, well, I just need to lift heavier. I just need to do more weights. Yeah. And then Dr. Brad and Dr. Danielle are like, hey, and Dr. Josh are like, hey, have you thought about band exercises? Have you thought about isometrics? Have you thought about all of these different things that you don't need to lift weights with?
Yeah.
And that's start there.
Definitely the biggest difference I see between men and women. Women are like, oh, I shouldn't do this. This hurts. Not all, but most. Versus men are like, well, let's just push through it. And I'm like, let's be gentle with the body.
Yeah.
And they want to do the same workout they did 30 years ago.
Yes.
And it doesn't always work out so well.
Yes.
But
yes.
But then they'll just keep pushing right through. But
yes. But I've been able to work with several different guys that have opened up their eyes to be like, wow, yoga has completely changed the other side of their training. Like they've been able to gain flexibility, so they're able to lift weights in a different way and be able to protect the joint and build the muscles that you need to have longevity in that joint.
The inclusion of NFL players in ballet and things that help with core stability, it's so encouraged and accepted nowadays than it was 20 years ago.
Open it up for other guys to feel like, oh yeah, this something I might want to try out.
Right, and you get players that have these plans to not just play for 5 years, but to play for 15 to 20 years, whether you're NFL, whether you're NBA, whether you're NHL, soccer, football, American, and
when they see the results and the improvement not only in injury but performance, that's huge.
Well, it's like cross training. Like they've been able to prove if you do one thing over and over again, you're going to hurt yourself. Versus doing a variety of things, your body's prepared for all the different variations.
Is a big topic with younger people now being told they need to do just this one sport throughout, and then we're seeing these increased number of specific injuries that are related to that specific sport.
There are patients here that play year-round, and there's a couple kids that do multiple sports, but they play on their school team, they play on their select team, they play on their traveling team, and that's year-round. And it is, like you're saying, like Dr. Brad's saying, that's the possibility of injury increases.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot on the body, especially at a young age. Like, the young body is meant to do a lot of things, and if you're only pushing it in one direction, you're going to push it off the ledge. And that's like, I remember
switch it up.
In high school, I played volleyball and I did track and field, and I did both of those through grade school and high school. And I remember I was the one that led the weight training and all that stuff for the track and field. And that's when I think really ignited my passion into helping others learn how to use their body, is because I would plan out a workout that was good for lifting weights, but also cardio. So that way the runners were getting what they needed and the throwers and the jumpers were getting what they needed. And that's when I was like, wow, no one knows how to work out.
Right.
No one knows how to use their body. And I remember...
Including sometimes
That's
the
still...
coaches.
Yes.
That's still present.
Yeah.
That's still present. People want, not that they want to be catered to, but they want someone who knows what they're doing and knows what they're talking about. They know they can look on YouTube. They know they can figure it out for themselves.
Well, it's so easy to look up a workout, but
Yeah.
no one tells you what's that supposed to feel like
Yeah.
in the body. And
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing is like everyone knows what a squat is,
Right.
but do you know what it's supposed to feel like, what it's supposed to look like?
There's someone there watching you do it. Where's your spotter?
Mm-hmm.
Even if they don't like working out, is there somebody there with you,
Yeah.
encouraging you? That's why when you get a partner and they hold you responsible to work out or to do whatever every single day. Like I know myself and Dr. Brad, we're always telling ourselves and other members of the office, make sure you get your spines checked, because we have a tendency to put ourselves last.
Yeah.
We can't help anybody if we're injured.
Yeah. Or we get home
Yeah.
at night and we don't feel like doing anything.
Yeah.
And when we should be doing,
Yeah,
stuff to focus on.
Yeah, you
ourselves.
have to be able to take care of yourself to take care of others.
You're right.
It is the biggest thing.
you're 100% correct.
And I have a question for you, not directly related to yoga, but you mentioned your background in terms of college is in nutrition. Do you incorporate any of that?
When
With-
people ask,
Okay.
then yes, I'm more than willing to, because I'm a food nerd and an anatomy nerd. Like I love all things related to the body. So when people have questions about where to start eating, because obviously the traditional American diet is not ideal.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, we have some stuff waiting for us in the back.
Yeah.
But I myself,
sure.
with the autoimmune issues, comes lots of food sensitivities. So the last 15 years of my life has been figuring out what works for me, what decreases inflammation, what triggers the different flare-ups. So I definitely I've had lots of family members and friends who have a new diagnosis and they're like, I don't really want to jump into all these heavy medications. What do you suggest is the first changes within the diet? So I'm always willing to do that and to help people
That's awesome.
just start, because you just got to start somewhere, and it's very overwhelming if you're, they don't educate anybody about nutrition. So
Yeah, and that's something we were talking about, the
Commercials.
exercise.
It's all commercials,
The
right?
exercise part of it too, but you can get in a little bit of trouble if you decide to just start Googling stuff on your own, because there's people out there, influencers,
Yeah.
that maybe the stuff that they're promoting maybe isn't the best.
Yes.
So make sure you're talking to somebody who does have a background
Yes.
in nutrition or
at least knows
exercise.
how to research something.
Right.
That so many people say, well, I researched it. And I'm like, no, you read an article out of a magazine. You need to go to an actual research link.
Yeah.
Who's paying money to write that article?
Exactly.
Yeah, who backed it?
Yes. So definitely, if anyone ever has questions about where to start, how to help, or just identify what's causing inflammation in the body, like I've been there. I've been doing it for a long time. Not only with myself, but with friends and family. And it's not as scary as you think, I promise.
Okay, so when is yoga?
Yoga. Currently we have 4 classes.
Okay.
Monday we have a 5:30 p.m. yoga basics, really good for beginners and everybody.
And how's that going? How are the doctors doing in terms of during that time period? Are we?
Well, you guys do good. You're
Okay.
not, every now and then we hear you, but it's not loud enough to distract the class.
Okay.
And by the time we hit Shavasana, which is the last 5 minutes of the class, the final rest, you guys are usually gone
We're out,
and it's
yeah.
quiet. That's the most important time for it to be quiet.
Okay.
Is
Because I've heard
because
of both ends. I've heard we're doing well, and then I've heard maybe we should
every
do a
now
little
and
better.
then it's sometimes not even you guys. It's just, what's happening in the office.
Or
Yeah,
some patient
you-
hanging out right up front there and like,
Yes.
talking really loud.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it doesn't bother me. Every now and then someone will laugh really loud, and me and the other students will go, they're having a good time, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But other than that, that's the only class that we hear you guys
Right.
at all.
That's
or
the only one we're
anything like
really here.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
that. Yeah, because in the other classes, we have 2 classes on Wednesdays. We have a 7 a.m., which is another yoga basics, and then a 6:30 p.m., which I call all levels.
Mm-hmm.
So that way, if you think you're above a beginner's, I can offer some more challenging poses or variations. So that way, if there are beginners in the class, they can still do what they're capable of. But if you want to do more, I can suggest that. And then Friday at 9 a.m. is also all levels yoga.
We absolutely have some beginners, and we have some people that really like to go all out.
Yes, yes.
And you know who I'm talking about.
Well, and that's fun for me because I love to experiment with all things, and I'm definitely most comfortable making sure everyone else is comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So when someone's like, I want to sweat today, I'm like, okay, are you sure? Are you ready? How's your body feeling? Are you capable of doing this? And I'll still, I'll prep the same way I always prep. And then I'll make sure there's always props nearby of like,
sure.
especially if we're doing balance and stuff. I love doing balance, especially for those who like something a little more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It's really good for the hips and the core and all the things that make up the body. But it's definitely fun for me to experiment with what people want to do.
There are a couple of patients that need hip and low back instructions, not just stretches and exercises, but the walkthrough of deep belly breathing into, okay, we're going to work on your hips. This is what it should feel like.
Yeah.
This is what it shouldn't feel like. Let's go through this range of motion. And I'm still working on those patients to try it once.
Well, a lot of what I see with hip and low back is they're so sensitive about it, they don't want to do anything. And I'm like, in order to fix it, we need to work the muscle and then stretch it. So that's my biggest thing is let's get some blood flowing within those muscles and then we'll stretch.
Does that come back to the pain avoidance
Yes.
issue?
Yes. And that's where like I'm always very sensitive and I have certain movements I'll do if someone's, oh, this hurts. And, I definitely am always sensitive to that, but I want to get those muscles working.
Yeah.
Because
If
as
we
soon
work
as we
through it a
get
little
them
bit.
firing, it completely changes how their muscles are working.
Right.
And there's so many different little movements to work this side of the hip or this part of the low back. And it's just working with me, allowing me to help you
Yeah.
make
The
those
great thing is
movements.
that we can spend a few minutes with patients going over a few things like the belly breathing or a few exercises, but this is an hour at least one time a week that you can spend just devoted to
Yeah.
those sort
And
of things.
if I have a student in there and they're like, everyone else is capable of, I can get them in a pose and keep them moving like that. And I can come over and be like, okay,
Right.
how is this
One-on-one.
feeling for you? Like, let's adjust. Let's do this. Let's figure out what works best for you because every body is different, not only in the way we look, but our, like the literal shape of and length of our bones.
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
like
the
some
torso.
people,
Even how the joints come together are different.
Yes.
Like your hip joints.
Yes.
Everyone has a different angle. You know how that femur comes in. so-
Exactly. And like chair pose, it's basically like a squat. Some people can get their hips so low, I'm like, are you about to fall over? Whereas some people are like half standing.
Right.
But that's your chair pose. That's
Right,
what
yeah.
Right.
engages your glutes and your back. That's perfect. So and that's where I really encourage people, yes, it's good to look around and see what others are doing, but you need to check in with yourself first.
Right.
And that's good because, you could have, try to force that person to do that same squat all day long.
Yeah.
It's just going to frustrate
That's why
everyone involved.
I
so-
never do physical adjustments on people
Mm-hmm.
because
while they're doing it, right?
I like yoga isn't supposed to look a certain way. It's supposed
Right.
to feel a certain way. So that's why I'm always like, I will, unless we're doing like, we're on our hands and knees and doing kickbacks. That's the only time I'll be like, don't kick your leg higher than this.
Right.
That's the only time I'll come anywhere near of like actually like
Yeah.
adjusting where you're
Right.
moving. But otherwise I'm just like, okay, do this,
Right.
tilt your hips or shift to the left. Does that feel better? Does that feel worse? So don't ever, if you're scared of someone, because people have been injured from a yoga instructor physically adjusting their movement. And that is
Right.
like, I've been told by lots of my teachers to never do that. And I've heard nightmare stories. So do not worry about that from me.
Awesome. Anything to add, Dr. Brad?
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
That was a really well done, descriptive, deep breathing exercise, and what a great discussion on yoga. I am Dr. Matt, Dr. Brad, and Kenzie. If you need to contact me or email me questions, it is drmatt@mfwellness.org. See you later.
A big thank you goes to Hug Monster Sound for all the hard work they put into making us sound so great.